I didn't know the seats of parliament have different warmth, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, I don't foresee myself leaving this seat anytime soon.
And if we are to be a country that practices the rule of law, let it be appealed. But until then, let it be implemented. Let the Honorable Junaid Mohammed be the majority leader. And it does not matter whether you are in government or not, because we are not debating who's in government and who's not. We are not debating the reasoning. Mr. Speaker, we are not even debating your election because we all participated. Some of us who are not in the other party still voted for you.
Anyway guys, welcome back to another episode of Africa is Marwa. If you haven't subscribed, kindly do so. And if you're my returning viewer, thank you very much. And tell me where you're watching from in the comment section. I mean, have you been following Kenyan politics? Because I know I have subscribers from different regions in Africa. But please tune in because we got some good juice coming in. Well, interesting times in Kenya, especially if you do follow Kenyan politics. It's quite an interesting time because the opposition has actually taken the majority lead in parliament. And this is actually shocking because, you know, elections in Kenya were held last in 2022. And what does this mean? It's been already 2 years since elections were held. And the party which is ruling, which is Kenya Kwanza, has been holding the majority lead in the Kenyan parliament. But now there was a case in the Kenyan court, and it went on since October, I believe in 2023, up to date in 2025. So when the court made the ruling, the opposition felt like they are supposed to take back or to reclaim their seats. And today, the parliament session started with this drama, you know, where the majority now, who are the minority, actually left their seats and sat on the majority seats. So confusion in parliament, and actually the court also ruled that, you know, the current speaker is not supposed to be holding the position he is in at the moment. So he is also in a dilemma that he can't make a decision that is affecting this case. I mean, how interesting. How interesting.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, February 11th, 2024. 1. The Auditor General's report
Order. Take your seats. Order. Take your seats. Order. Order, members. Order. I will order that matter to be stayed. Let me hear Millie Odhiambo's point of order. Order. Millie Odhiambo, I'll hear your point of order. Order. I will hear Millie Odhiambo's point of order. 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 Honorable members, take your seats. Millie Odhiambo.
Thank you, honorable members.
Order. Member for Kilifi.
Mr. Speaker, because I said I'm not going to go to the merits and demerits of the matter, in concluding, I want to urge that as a parliament, we need to obey court rulings and decisions, even when we don't agree with them. And Mr. Speaker, I also just want to indicate that you can see my two colleagues are standing next to me. My advice to them in future is to follow a philosophy from my community which says, Telo Ikao, Telo Kumingato. So next time they should do what Honorable Ruku did. Jump if you have to, but take your position the way Honorable Millie has done.
Is that part of your point of order?
No. Mr. Speaker, I said as an obiter. And Mr. Speaker, I would also just want to say, very finally, also as an obiter. Mr. Speaker, people are also talking about broad-based. Again, I'm very careful. I'm saying this as an obiter. It's not my substantive argument. Mr. Speaker, people talk of broad-based. Yeah, and even when you look at the decisions of the arguments of the court, they keep making reference to the de jure and the de facto. And many things may have changed over time. And Mr. Speaker, I'd want to say that actually if you look at this side of the House today, we are seeing broad, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we want to see good faith, we want to see if it is also based. It is broad. But based, whether it is based will depend on the decision going forward. Otherwise, we will be told by the court it is hot hair, this broad base is hot hair, wild goose chase, and all those other things, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move.
Order, members. Order, members. Maintain your silence.
Matter did not go to court in vain. The contestation, Mr. Speaker, was your considered ruling of 6th of October. Once that ruling is quashed, you cannot then, Mr. Speaker, with due respect, come and say that no decision has been made. The consequences are two. One, the leader of minority becomes the leader of majority by operation of law, even if you do nothing else. But in this case, we have gone further, and under Standing Order 19A, Standing Order 3, it...
1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, under 19A is very clear. The majority party whip shall communicate the name of the member elected under paragraph 1 to the Speaker in writing, and that was already done by the Honorable Millie Mabona. That settles that case. Mr. Speaker, the only way we can start debating whether this decision quashes and changes the position of majority and minority is if we want to practice impunity. Mr. Speaker, and I agree with your observations, it is not in this forum to question the reasoning in the judgment. That must be questioned elsewhere. The only issue is it the finding of the court? And it is. And if we are to be a country that practices the rule of law, let it be appealed. But until then, let it be implemented. Let the Honorable Junaid Mohammed be the majority leader. And it does not matter whether you are in government or not, because we are not debating who's in government and who's not. We are not debating the reasoning. Mr. Speaker, we are not even debating your election because we all participated. Some of us who are not in the other party still voted for you. So,
Mr. Speaker, first I want to say today that I am privileged to speak from the seat of the majority leader. Because, Mr. Speaker, even when I sat on the seat, it is very warm, Mr. Speaker, unlike mine, which was very cold, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know the seats of Parliament have different warmth, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I don't foresee myself leaving this seat anytime soon. I don't see myself leaving this one anytime. But having said, Mr. Speaker, as you are aware and as you have alluded to, Mr. Speaker, there is a court ruling. A ruling of court consisting of 3-judge bench, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a court ruling has only got 2 decisions, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it. One is to obey it, and secondly, if you have any avenue of appeal, you exercise that right of appeal, Mr. Speaker. There is no third way about it, Mr. Speaker. And the court ruling, what we went as Azimio after the election, after your decision here, Mr. Speaker, what took us to court was for the court to interpret for us the constitutionality of your decision on who is the majority party and who is the minority party in this House, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the Speaker came in as obiter, Mr. Speaker. But what took us to court, we wanted to know, because when we arrived here after the election, we arrived here knowing very well that we are the majority party, Mr. Speaker. And we are the numbers. But midway, we ended up losing numbers through your ruling, Mr. Speaker. And that is what took us to court, to ascertain whether we are the majority and whether we are the minority. And luckily, the court has made its ruling, albeit late, Mr. Speaker. We expected this ruling much, much earlier than this time, Mr. Speaker. But it is better late than never. The decision arrived, and the decision has said that the Azimio party is the majority party in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And I so happen to be the minority leader as of now, Mr. Speaker. So today afternoon, I just switched seats and I took over the role of majority leader, Mr. Speaker.
The question is this a coincidence? Because we know we have the AU elections and the opposition or the Azimio leader, who is Raila Amolo Odinga, is actually vying, and people are anticipating that this is not a coincidence because the election is going to be held on 15th, if I'm not wrong. And they feel like if he loses, he's going to come back to Kenya and continue with the local politics. I mean, quite an interesting time ahead, and everyone is so anxious to see on how things are going to fall apart or to fall out, because things were really moving on well, especially with the opposition and the ruling party, which is Kenya Kwanza. They formed a broad-based government last year after the Gen Z movement, Gen Z Hoi. After the Gen Z movement, the opposition and the ruling party came together and they formed a broad-based government where even now the people that we have in cabinet, half of them are from the opposition party and half of them were given by the ruling party. But now, how is this going to affect the relationship that the opposition is having with the ruling party? I mean, interesting times ahead, really, really interesting times. And if you haven't been following Kenyan politics, I think this is now the high time you need to follow Kenyan politics. But anyway, thank you very much for tuning up to the end and for subscribing to Africa is Marwa. If you're my returning viewer, thank you very much. I mean, your support has been so nice and I really appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. But if you're new to Africa is Marwa, I mean, what are you still waiting for? As long as you're African, make sure you hit on that subscribe button and on that notification bar so that anytime we do post a video, you actually get notified fast.